Hello, Patriots, family, and friends. Murray Clemenson here with Freedom for You Fellowship. My wife Adina and I would just like to give you a little bit of information about our history in connection with January 6th and how life has changed since then.
Hello, I'm Adina Clemenson. I'm happy to be here today with my husband and wonder a little bit about what has happened and why we are on this journey.
So go ahead, Adina, you can kick it off with just talking about some of the things that have changed since our family attended the insurrection / entrapment at the January 6th Support Your Representatives Day.
Right. Well, thank you. Thinking back, I would maybe even go even further back than January 6th. For our family personally, it has been quite a change after we moved to Tennessee from Oregon, from Portland, Oregon. And one of the reasons for moving was because we experienced sort of a environment in Oregon that, for us, a conservative Christian family, it was unnerving or uncomfortable. And since we have 3 children, we wanted to ensure that they have a more godly or Bible-friendly environment. So we came all the way over here, and I feel like our life has been pretty normal for a while there. The kids were going to school, and we were getting
There or here?
Here.
And
we were just getting used to this new state.
And Portland was exceptionally odd and strange and uncomfortable, in particular since Donald Trump was elected. Isn't that right? It was keep Portland weird was the motto in Portland before Donald Trump became president. But after Donald Trump became president, we really started to notice how it was just taboo to say that you supported Trump or that you voted for Trump. It was just really something. So yeah,
that was a good reminder. Thinking back to those years, because if we are thinking in the line of when did we notice the first bizarre events happening, so to speak, things that have been out of the ordinary or not according to the norm, we could say that was totally the truth for people living in Oregon or Christians living in Oregon. I remember following certain characters on social media, like Matt Walsh, for example. I remember starting to follow him. I'm not really sure how he popped up in my Facebook feed, but he was there and he was talking about just things that current events and just commentary on some of the things that were happening. And I remember how helpful it was to see somebody speaking out and using a logic that was so familiar and I agreed with. I felt like that was logical, what he was saying. However, society there or our environment was not necessarily on that side at all. And my husband mentioned the election. I remember we weren't following politics very much, but that election back then, when Trump was elected, was a huge one for us, because as Christians in that state, we felt kind of the walls closing in, so to speak.
Yeah, that's well said.
We could feel it. We could sense it, that things would have gone in a very different direction, and we would have been pretty much persecuted, probably.
You mean if Hillary would have got it?
If Hillary would have got in, and we felt like a sense of relief. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Lord, for giving us another 4 years of relative freedom.
If I remember right, wasn't it going to be a situation where we would have had to only worship the Lord in your church, only talk about God in your church, and don't talk about God out on the street?
I think so.
I think that's the way it was going there in Portland.
I think so. Yes. And then it was super bizarre that after Trump was elected, there were these huge riots happening in the city, and all our friends would connect and ask, "Hey, are you guys okay? Is everything okay?" And we were like, "Nothing strange happening in our street." But if you watch TV, and we heard, of course, the news, there were things happening downtown.
That's that Mockingbird media for you.
Yes, and we didn't know anybody who would do such a thing as go out there and dress in black and go and attack cars and drag, drivers out of their cars. We don't know anybody who would do that in Portland. However, somehow there were some mysterious characters doing some destruction, and that was super bizarre because we could see that the police, for whatever reason, was not stepping in, and they were not protecting innocent citizens.
Almost like they were promoting the chaos.
So yeah, we could say that those were that could be a marker, I guess, for some strange things starting to happen that came into our horizon, so to speak, and we were like, oh wow, that is very bizarre. And so yeah, we came here, and it was definitely a huge change to see. I would say for me, for example, you can come across Christians just going out of your house.
There was actually Christian people that had businesses advertising that they were Christians here.
Yes, or if you go to, this might be for women out there, but you would go to Kohl's, for example, and compare to Kohl's in Oregon and Kohl's in Tennessee, you can find Christian merchandise, like as if they were targeting, as if they were trying to cater to Christian women out there. Like the percentage would be like, like huge, like 70-80%, as opposed to in Oregon, for example, I don't remember seeing
these are
that much
Christian clothes or what?
I am actually, thanks for asking. Yeah, I was more like thinking home decor or malls.
Right, yes.
Or, things that you decorate your home with, or nice, the nice piece that I got, for example, that says "so very grateful" or "thankful" or something like that.
Yeah.
All these home decor things.
Yeah.
I noticed that it was a lot for Christian.
Yeah, I think it's just a lot more Christian atmosphere here.
Yeah, or
whether it's business or on the street or in the store, and
or people.
You could actually have You can actually have Donald Trump stickers on your windows of your cars without worrying about them getting bashed in.
Exactly.
Stuff like that. You wouldn't be scared to put a Trump sticker or wear a Trump hat. I think even. Yeah, I think people are still a little bit concerned about wearing Trump hats here. Something about that red really gets people going. The old people would do it, but not so much the younger generation.
Yeah, but another interesting thing is that we meet a lot of people from other states.
Yeah, it's true, especially at our church, Patriot Church. There's 3/4 of the congregation is from out of state. That's
right. And so, yeah, if we talk about how our life changed, I think we can agree with anybody out there, even globally, anybody, that the start of the pandemic was pretty much another big marker of how our world shifted, kind of. So what was the date? When did the pandemic start?
I don't know. It's all one big mess.
2 years ago. Which was first, the pandemic or J6?
Well, the pandemic. So J6 was so the pandemic basically started 1 year before
Oh, okay.
before the
Well, that's right, because of the mask.
yeah,
I
it started,
remember the
yeah,
mask.
it started 1 year before the election. So
That's right. Well, thank you for
Yeah.
straightening me out. I have an issue with numbers, but yeah. So I could say personally, but for my family as well, that was well, I guess let me just say that at the beginning we believed what we were told. We believed that
that was a good trick.
yeah, that there is a virus out there, and somehow it's mysteriously spread all over. And
Somehow it started on the boats first. I don't know how that went. It happened. It didn't have anything to do with that 5G or anything like that. Incubated in the boats. Yeah.
yeah, so somehow it started, and life stopped for a while, I guess. So and I remember this frenzy or this fear that was among the people, thinking we could die.
Yeah.
And we need to take all these measures to prevent ourselves from dying and protect our family. And work stopped for a couple of weeks.
You can keep
Which
the
actually
we
was
can
a
keep
nice time. I remember that.
Yeah,
it
it
was
was
a nice
we
time.
can keep the liquor store open, but we better shut the church down.
Oh yeah, Kroger and Walmart never
Never
closed.
shut down. Yeah.
Yes, that's true.
Which is why Pastor Ken Peters of Patriot Church decided not to shut his doors after he saw that they were still going to keep the stores open. How's that different than having a church?
That was a very good logic, and I actually really admire everybody out there who at that time was able to be fearless and just trust God and say, hey, I'm going to obey God first and not people. I admire those people. I wasn't one of those.
Yeah.
I was not, but I admire these people with the vision and the Holy Spirit guiding them. And I think the Holy Spirit was guiding us too, because eventually we understood that there must be something wrong out there. Why did you think that something was off?
Mhm.
When did we start thinking that well, we don't need to believe everything we hear?
Yeah, well, I think it really came down to when we could see that they wanted to do an experiment on everybody, and we had to decide, do we want to be part of this experiment? And the next thing you know, it became mandatory in many areas, and if not mandatory, it was being pushed really heavily at such places like the university where I was going to school. They would be pushing it on all of the students that they needed to go be part of this experiment. And people started speaking out against it. And at the same time, they were having all the trouble with the election stuff as well. So yeah, I think it was prior to the actual election, but they were manipulating the people during that time. Yeah.
And then we learned as the weeks and months went by, I suppose. But I remember we started wondering if the testing was accurate.
Yeah.
And then because we would see people get tested and have no symptoms at all, or somebody starts coughing or something happens and they immediately send them to get tested for COVID. And if they have COVID, then they need to quarantine and stay home and everything else. But everybody else needs to also test around them and everything else. And then they were talking about the people who have no symptoms, but they still have it. And
then a little later, George
stuff.
Soros and Bill Gates were on the Epic Times talking about how they were going to take over the testing. But that's not a news flash.
So yeah.
Do you trust George Soros with your PCR testing? How about Bill Gates? I don't know.
Yeah, and there was a period of time when people weren't coughing much either.
Yeah, well, you don't dare cough when you got COVID. No.
Oh, but yeah. On a more serious note, though, we are grateful that God protected us. God protected our family.
We got the COVID. We got
We
those
believe, yes.
tests one day too.
Yeah,
She tricked us into going and getting them.
yeah.
I don't know. It was a rough thing, you know. We're trying to figure out the COVID, and we got
At that time,
the jab up the nose, and
at that time we were still diligently. We were trying to follow the rules, and we didn't know much about anything.
It is my belief that those guys are going to get what's coming to them, because that was a really nasty trick they played on everybody.
Yeah. We feel like that was totally unnecessary to test the little kids like that. But yeah, we
And
didn't.
adults too.
We haven't
Whatever
done
they're
it.
putting in there, whether it's graphene oxide or some nano chip, and you know, there's all these different stories. But no matter what it was not cool.
Even if none of that is true, which I don't know if it is or not, but it was a very uncomfortable, painful procedure for what, really?
Yeah, for what?
So
For
what was really the purpose? So at any rate, we are
the jab
grateful
up the
for-
nose, though, that got us thinking in such a way that we helped us to not take any of those vaccines that so many of our loved ones have taken. Unfortunately, my mom and my parents and stuff, they decided they really need those vaccines, and which is not even a real vaccine, because the vaccine has to go through a certain amount of tests, which is well documented. They don't just come out with a vaccine over a few months.
Right. Of course, there are different reasons why people would take the vaccine. So I'm just praying that, everybody is protected, and people who were unaware be protected. People who might have taken it for the good reasons.
Yeah.
Good reasons being like, I don't know, ministry, or I know people from my family or from overseas, the restrictions were so severe and so strict, nothing like the US restrictions, by the way. They were so strict that as a pastor, for example, would not be able to travel from point A to point B and do their regular ministry that they have been doing for decades. And these people courageously said, I'm not going to give up my ministry. I'd rather take this vaccine and
So that's
carry on
another,
with my ministry.
that's
So-
another way that they attack the church then. Yeah, so we have family there in Romania, and they had to take these vaccines in order to keep doing their ministry.
Yes.
And so they made some really hard decisions that people had to make.
Exactly. So yeah, it is important to not make blanket statements. God knows everybody's heart. God knows everybody's circumstance and situation, but definitely what some people were saying, that this was a great test run for what people are willing to do for their health.
For the World
Was-
Economic Forum,
Was an excellent
the WHO.
it was an excellent lesson for us to see that, wow, the whole world is affected,
Mhm.
and what we are willing to do.
Somehow
for,
those dirty, rotten scoundrels got into every last village on earth.
yes,
Amazing.
absolutely.
Except for, it seems like Africa didn't. They were kind of already a little wise to the whole situation. So,
Yeah,
so I suppose not every area, but like in Romania and different places in Europe, it's just amazing how far they got with their vaccine.
so if we talk about the negative implications or things, freedoms, have there been any freedoms taken away?
Well, I think that freedom has been completely under attack ever since before the election, the last election or selection of the president. And we are seeing constantly how our freedoms are being eroded, which is one reason why we started Freedom for You Fellowship. We want to be able to bring the church to the battlefield. Now, we still attend a Patriot Church out there in Lenore City, Tennessee, and we enjoy the fellowship there. But we wanted to also be able to get the church to the battlefield outside the church. And there's just so many different areas where the freedoms are eroding that we just can't get to them all from Patriot Church. So Pastor Ken Peters has a really cool ministry called the Church at Planned Parenthood, where he's going out and having praise and worship at the gates of hell, which are at the Planned Parenthood facilities and abortion clinics. But we want to be able to do more ministry and get out there where the freedoms are being eroded, whether it's at the local school board meeting or whether it's at Capitol Hill, where they're going to pass some new legislation, perhaps that we don't agree with, or if they're going to have people that are Republican conservatives or that are going to pass good legislation, then we want to be able to go and support them because they're under attack. So yeah, freedoms are a big deal in the last few years.
So it has painfully becoming clear, or has become clear, that we have fallen asleep pretty much as far as.
And even generations before us have fallen asleep. It looks like it goes back 4, 5, 6, 7 decades of people falling asleep.
Yeah, so we can't sit back anymore, unfortunately, as much as I like to sit on my couch.
Yeah, we're burning the couch around here.
We need to recognize that us citizens, we have a job to do. We can't trust our elected people to do a great job. We need to actually see that they are doing a great job.
Yeah, we need to hold them accountable.
Just referring back a little bit to the pandemic, to the freedoms and everything else. Just a very simple example: the masks that we have been required to wear. It has been. I think that it took a great toll on everybody, but especially the children. It should have never been allowed. And of course, we need to recognize that people want to do something. It's kind of like a psychological thing that if I do something.
Just let me clarify. You mean the masks that, like, you could wear like a styrofoam mask, or you could wear a cloth diaper mask, or you could wear like a mask with a whole bunch of holes in it, or you can wear a mask with a handkerchief, or we've all seen them, right? They're the most ridiculous thing. Or you could wear your mask and then you have your nose sticking out, right? And just have all that bacteria and crap everywhere. The person's touching it all the time.
And we have to admit that all of us, I could not mentally track what I was doing.
Yeah, no.
Like, did I touch it? What did I do?
Yeah.
There is no way that people were using those masks.
It's obviously not to stop the germs, right?
Yeah, it was absolutely impossible to go around. I mean, unless somebody changed it every 20 minutes or something with another disposable.
Yeah.
Maybe that would be a way of keeping up with the sanitary regulations. But other than that,
it's obviously about control. Obviously.
Yeah, and then it breaks my heart thinking of education, because we were talking about being asleep. I think that many parents realized during the pandemic what the schools were teaching their children. They became aware of some of the agendas and strange things that got into the schools during the pandemic, because the children were learning at home, and the parents realized, oh, is this what's happening?
We were one of those families. Now we're doing homeschool.
Yeah, so that was, I guess, a positive in a sense, that people became aware of some things that they should have known, but we trusted the government or the public schools with teaching our children. And you can't give trust without conditions. You can't. I mean, we all need to trust at a certain degree. However, we need to be more careful about who we trust, and we need to follow up. We need to check in.
The more questions we ask to our local school, the more nasty they become. They labeled me as an extreme conservative parent.
Yes, exactly.
So, you mean the kind of parent that cares? Like a helicopter parent, one that actually parents.
Yeah, so it became painfully clear that even in a conservative state like Tennessee, and a great area, and technically speaking, or comparing it to other Western,
being in the Bible Belt buckle.
Yes. There were some great teachers, Christian people,
and everything else. There were some.
However, we had to recognize, and it became painfully clear, that it is a system that has its rules and regulations, and as a parent, there is not much you can do to change those or to, if you don't like something, it is super hard to change.
And in fact, the
those
teachers
things.
there at the school, they wanted to make the changes and they didn't like what they had to do. And they were controlled by somebody up above. They would always point to, that they would love to not do it the way that they were doing it. They would love to have changes, but they needed to follow some protocol.
Exactly. And I was just thinking of another thing that happened during the pandemic, which is worth pointing out, is this false narrative when they take some freedom away, but the way they do it is that they convince you that you're protecting somebody else, yourself and somebody else, with that regulation that they bring in, and they are going to take your freedom away. And that is very deceiving and very dangerous. And I feel like it is creeping in many other agendas that narratives that are present right now. But one example was that they were telling the children that they needed to wear the masks to protect their grandparents, to protect their.
That's right. You're going to kill grandma and grandpa.
Yes, you cannot tell a child something like that.
But if you go get a vaccine, that'll fix it.
Yeah, so that is a huge lie, and it's heartbreaking, actually. And then to hear the stories of old grandmas and grandpas dying in their in the old people facilities because they were not, because of the restrictions and the freedoms were taken away, and their family members, loved ones, couldn't go and see them. That is another abomination, I would call.
Absolutely.
Or people, other testimonies out there who were on the phone trying to be connected to their family member in the hospital, but they were not allowed to go in. So these things were, I feel like somebody should pay for those. Absolutely.
And what's amazing about our time now is that people are forgetting about this. How is it that people are going to just let all this stuff be pushed under the rug?
Exactly. Or if any of you listening were forced to give up your job, or you had to make a compromise, or take the vaccine just to keep your job. These are decisions you shouldn't have been. These decisions shouldn't have been forced on anybody. Everybody should have had the freedom to choose. And so yeah, I guess I could say that I was blessed to not have to decide that, but I do know that we talked about it. We said that, okay, if that's the price, I'm going to give up my job.
Mhm.
I didn't have to, thankfully, but that's a difficult decision, especially if somebody has to take care of their family, or there is a single parent in a household or anything like that.
Absolutely.
It is a real difficult.
So we started out talking about January 6th, and I think that was the intention to say some things have changed since then. But obviously, just so many things have changed. I think everybody's aware of that. And it is just hard to track all of the changes,
I think the biggest thing I think of since then was, for me, it was the realization that we cannot trust the government.
We cannot trust the government. We cannot trust the medical complex. We
Yes.
cannot trust the universities, the education complex.
Because I come from previously communist country, Romania. I grew up there as a Hungarian, in a Hungarian family. And we knew back then that you cannot trust the government. That was a given.
Yeah, they were lies.
Yes. So when I came here 13 years ago, this was an amazing new country where I learned that, oh, you're not afraid when the police comes by. They smile at you and they are very nice and they help you. You don't have to be afraid of the government or people in uniform. And that was a huge thing back in my country, that people who were in office usually, we were for them, they were not for us. And that was the attitude normally, or very, very few exceptions. you could talk about the hospitals like that, the same thing. We were for them, they were not for us,
Right.
and everywhere. And we were used to it. We didn't expect anything better. So when I came here, I got used to something really good in many areas. So for me, it was a shock that when I went after J6, it was like, oh wow, something just happened, something dramatic happened that shows us that that trust cannot be there anymore. It was
Right.
breached. It was a huge thing. Because especially because there were previous attempts to make people realize that there needs to be an investigation and people are not trusting. We the people do not trust what's happening.
Mhm.
And we thought that, well, the Constitution says you can petition your government. So as long as we do that, I don't know how many times we do this and that, blah, blah, blah. Eventually, something is going to happen. And when it didn't, or when something else happened, that was very shocking.
Yeah, so these are just the crazy changes, and we're just doing everything we can to be diligent, be awake and aware, occupy as Christians in any way that we can, whether it's in your local school board, whether it's in your local municipalities, your churches, communities, and there is a need to stand up. For a little bit more information on what did happen on January 6th, we have some links that we will put below. It is very important to watch movies like Bloody Hill, movies like Capital Punishment, the movie. And then also we have another video analyst that did a documentary that's there on BitChute, a link to that, where once you analyze the video footage, and for example, the ones where they were analyzing what happened around Ashley Babbitt, you can see the choreography, whether or not Ashley Babbitt was or was not murdered there on Capitol Hill. There's an obvious staged event happening. And for me and my family to see that some monsters would take us and manipulate us in such a way that they could use a false flag event to benefit their agenda was just a real awakening moment for me. And from that moment forward, our family really not only woke up, but sobered up, because this is a very, very serious time in life where there is enemies within our government, enemies within our country, and we have literally been infiltrated on a level that needs serious help. So it's going to be a long cleanup process, and we intend to be part of it, because one way or another, we're part of it. Whether we are being quiet or being silent, we're part of it. So thank you for listening to us.
Thank you so much.
It's been a great opportunity to just talk to you guys, and we hope to bring more stuff to you as time goes on. God has put it on our hearts that we need to get as much information out there as possible. And not only that, but we need to show up both with petitioning by paper and petitioning by presence so that our voice can be heard. It needs to be a concerted effort of Americans just doing the hard work. And so we hope you can join us in that. You could email us, get on our email list, and become involved. And so thank you for watching.